Anyway,
yeah.
here we're talking about pure color, form, and I want to bring joy to people. But the Oshun force, by inserting Oshun forces and inserting these traditional forces in my work, I have been able to raise the consciousness and raise the spectrum of what African culture is, contemporary, modern African culture, which is my quest. It is important that we realize that while Africa is our core, it's in our soul, it's in our molecules. And it's in our music. We are still in the 21st century. It's in everything we do.
Yes.
Okay? And it's important to understand.
Well, you know, I'm an absolute modern man, so you don't have to
absolutely.
preach it to the choir.
Well, we're talking to the audience now,
so
you know.
right.
So this is Oshun's garden. And of course, you know, the garden says what it says, and Oshun being that force as you explained, which is the force of beauty. And to me, Oshun, her color, or that force is yellow, you know, and it also represents the river. So I use the color of water surrounding this piece.
Now here we're looking at a work titled The Burden of Injustice. And this is one of a limited series of 30 woodcuts that Ademola does. And as I said, he's one of the reigning masters of the woodcut. Look at the intricacy of design here. And look at the Africanesque nature of the figures. They look very much like Yoruba sculpture, very much like Yoruba ceremonial figures. And these works, I should point out, are owned by major libraries and with their own loan, you know, from various libraries and collections across the country and really around the world. Here you see the blending of the modern and the traditional. Here you see the African aesthetic clearly displayed, and you see at the same time the use of modern technique, because as I say, painting is a European form. For Africans, it is a received form. But here you get, you know, the classic melding of the two traditions, Neo-African art at its finest. Painting that is dedicated to the heliocentric worlds of Sun Ra. Now, Sun Ra is a classic example of what I'm talking about when I talk about innovative modern artists. People listening to Sun Ra's music who have an untutored ear, who don't know anything about his history. Like the first time, you know, I heard Sun Ra, for instance, I thought this guy's making noise, because I was very disciplined in terms of the European system of melody and harmony. And I, for quite a while, was suspect of Sun Ra until I saw him give a concert of Fletcher Henderson's music with his band. And then when Pat Patrick joined the band, Pat Patrick, who's the father of B-Ball Patrick, the governor of Massachusetts, I knew Pat could play. And I knew Lex Humphreys and some of these other cats when he moved to Philadelphia and started a commune for musicians. I knew there was a lot of bad cats who were going into this commune, so I know these guys could play. And then Sun Ra went on tour with his orchestra as he called it, doing a concert of Fletcher Henderson's music. Now, Fletcher Henderson, as many of you may know, is the person who invented the form that we know as swing. I mean, they call Benny Goodman the king of swing, but if you read Benny Goodman's autobiography, he will tell you that it was Fletcher Henderson. Well, of course, when Benny Goodman had his first band, he hired Fletcher Henderson as his arranger. And of course, big band music, the music that we know as swing, is all about the arrangement. It's about, I mean, this is the arranger's art. And of course, Fletcher Henderson was the arranger who invented the form. And so Sun Ra, when I heard him playing Fletcher Henderson, I said, well, this guy's the real deal. In any case, this painting depicts visually what Sun Ra is doing. Like for instance, I became hip to Jackson Pollock because I was far more hip to music than I was painting until I had a great love affair with a woman who was an art historian. And she didn't know much about music. So I was teaching her about music and she was teaching me about painting. And then one day she picked up a book of mine, Marshall Stearns' book, The Story of Jazz. And in this book, there is an interview with Ornette Coleman, the great alto saxophonist and composer, avant-garde composer. And Ornette Coleman in this book says that he feels that his art has a rapport with the painting of Jackson Pollock. And this woman who was an art historian said, well, I sure wouldn't want to hear that. If his music sounded like Jackson Pollock's painting, I certainly don't want to hear that. Just the same thing that Picasso said when somebody said Stravinsky's music sounded like his painting. He said, I don't want to hear the music that sounds like my painting. So I thought, I knew Ornette Coleman, and I tried to imagine what painting would look like. She said, well, what does he sound like? So I introduced her to Ornette Coleman, and she introduced me to Jackson Pollock. And of course, this is when I really discovered abstract expressionist art or modern American art. And here, when I saw Jackson Pollock's painting, I could see what Ornette Coleman meant. There is the appearance of randomness about both of them, about both of their arts. If you are I know a piano player, for instance, who did a gig with Ornette one time. And the guy was a straightforward, straight-ahead pianist, trained in classical music, in classical European music and classical jazz. But when he got on the bandstand, he said the first thing he said, Ornette Coleman came over him and told him, said, listen, man, we don't want you imprisoning us with this piano. You understand? I'm saying, don't be playing no changes and all that kind of stuff. Keep it out. Just keep it out. You know what I mean? So here you see in this painting,
Thank you.
Dr. Ademola kept it out. Okay, and this is, as I said, a wonderful visual impression of the heliocentric worlds of Sun Ra. Dr. Ademola, come and tell us what because the materials, even what you attempted to capture here, even dictated the materials that you use. You're using holographic materials here. Why don't you explain to us how you did it? Because it's a multimedia, right?
Yeah. Well, first place, Sun